So we all know the story of Israel, right? And its journey from a plucky underdog to, well, let's just say things took a turn. Imagine if Iraqi was a country and instead of fighting clubber, he had to fight like 6 clubbers at once. Well, this is the Israeli narrative, of course. But here's where it gets weird. It's like Israel watched The Dark Knight and was like, you know what? Being the hero is boring. Let's try being the Joker for a while. Now, I'm not talking about the occupation or the conflicts we always hear about. I'm talking about something bigger. Because it looks like Israel got a plan that makes Bond villains look like amateurs. They're not trying to take over the world. They are trying to remake it in their image. Sounds like a conspiracy theory, right? Let's see. Nowadays, we're starting to see something huge around the world. Something that we've never seen before the internet and the social media. There's a growing global awareness of the reality in Palestine and the truth about Israel.
My name is Elijah Kallenberg. I am 21 years old. I'm a student here at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm majoring in Jewish studies, government, and Middle East studies. My father's side is Ashkenazi Jewish, and my mother's side has Sephardic Jewish heritage. I'm a very proud Jew. In most Jewish education, when it comes to Palestinians, you're not told about 1948, you're not told about the Nakba, you're typically told sometimes outright racist things about Arabs and Palestinians. I began a process of unpacking a lot of what I was told in Hebrew school, but also engaging with Palestinians. And a conclusion I came to is that Palestinian culture is more similar to my culture than to any other culture in the world.
I'm the president and founder of Atidna International. We're a peace group.
Atidna combines the Hebrew word atid for future with the Arabic suffix na for our, and when you put those two together, it means our future. We really just try to promote open dialogue on college campuses to get to know the quote-unquote other. You begin to humanize the other, and I think that's more important now than ever. I believe that the actions in Gaza do constitute a genocide. There are many corporations that are profiteering from what is happening in Gaza, specifically American corporations like Boeing, like Lockheed Martin, and these are the corporations that need to be called out for profiteering from the death and destruction of the Palestinian people. And because students took their First Amendment civil liberties at the university to the forefront, they were repressed. I was injured when one of the state troopers charged a crowd with their horse, and I was subsequently pushed to the ground. I was in shock when that happened. Speaking out on behalf of the Palestinian people is not inherently anti-Semitic. I've personally dealt with a lot of accusations that I am either a self-hating Jew, and even worse, some have called me a capo, which is a Jew who sold out fellow Jews to the Nazis, all for the stances I've taken for my Palestinian brothers and sisters. And that's personally very hurtful to me. I lost family in the Holocaust, but it doesn't stop me. I understand what I'm doing is just. I am standing with my Palestinian brothers and sisters for a very noble cause, and I view them as my family.
Turns out, when you give people smartphones and social media, they start noticing things. Who knew? Israel has been polishing its image for decades, and at the same time, heading towards global destruction. This image polishing was easier in the past, before the social media. We have many generations of Jews worldwide, especially those who have never set foot in Israel. They grew up believing Israel was the last safe haven, a knight in shining armor protecting the Jews from the world's Muslim monsters. They were raised on a diet so pro-Israel, it makes Fox News look like Al Jazeera. But now, the new generation is seeing the brutality, the racism, the massacres, and thinking, hang on, this isn't the bedtime story we were told. And oh boy, is that a wake-up call. It's like they've been living in the Matrix and someone just offered them the red pill wrapped in a falafel. And over the years, Not only has many Jewish people views shifted, but so has global awareness. Now we've got these big shot human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International are coming out and saying, hey guys, we hate to break it to you, but this looks a lot like apartheid.
When you hear the word apartheid, what do you think of? Probably the disturbing images of racial segregation between whites and blacks in South Africa, where a regime ruled by a racist white minority declared themselves officially superior to the black majority, then proceeded to dominate them. South Africa's apartheid system officially ended in the mid-1990s, but that doesn't mean apartheid can't happen elsewhere. Here, in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, Palestinians are being forced off their land and out of their homes, separated and segregated by laws, walls, and checkpoints. They live in a constant state of fear and insecurity and deliberately impoverished. While, on the other hand, Israeli authorities have given the Jewish Israeli population privilege over Palestinians in just about every facet of life. The question is, does this all amount to the crime of apartheid?
And even within the Jewish community itself, it's like, wait, what? Are we the baddies? But surely these are just fringe groups, right? I'm afraid not. A quarter of US Jews in a 2021 survey agreed that Israel was an apartheid state. That's like a quarter of Star Wars fans admitting that maybe, just maybe, the prequels were not that great. Even Israel's leading human rights group, B'Tselem, they dropped the A-bomb in 2021. And by A-bomb, I mean they called it apartheid. That's right. Israel's own watchdog is essentially saying, hey guys, we might be the baddies here because this surely looks like apartheid. Even the Israeli newspaper, Haaretz, Israel's version of the New York Times if it had a conscience, Haaretz publisher Amos Shokan is admitting it. That's like Fox News suddenly saying, you know what, maybe we've been a bit biased. It's like the world's slowest game of Marco Polo, where Palestinians have been yelling Marco since 1948, and the rest of the world is just now mumbling Polo while bumping into the pool furniture. And Israel's claim of being a beacon of democracy, well, let's just say it's a little dimmer than advertised. Why? You see, in Israel, before you can publish anything about foreign affairs or security, you've got to run it by the IDF's chief military censor first. That's right, a censor.
אני רוצה לדעת, עכשיו אני כבר רוצה לדעת את התסריט, אני רוצה לדעת את התוצאה הסופית, אני רוצה לדעת את העריכה, כי בסופו של דבר יכול להיות שבסוף היום, מה שאני אראה על המסך זה יהיה מבחינת התעשייה האווירית, אני מדבר בשם התעשייה האווירית, אני הדובר של התעשייה האווירית, קטסטרופה. ואת זה אני לא רוצה ולא צריך, לא בשביל החברה ולא בשבילי.
Israël ne désire pas de micro sur son stand. Vous êtes expulsés. C'est très clair?
You know, it's like having your mom check your text before you send them, except it's the army, and they're not just looking for embarrassing emojis. Believe me, this is not the face you want deciding what goes in your morning newspaper. Unless your ideal breakfast reading is everything is fine, go back to sleep. And get this, the former chief censor, Ariella Ben Avraham, left her job in 2020 to work for NSO Group, the largest Israeli surveillance and cyber intelligence company. Talk about a lateral move, right? Well, I used to stop you from saying things. Now, I just listen to everything you say. Same difference, right? As for Western media, you think with all the talk about Israel and Palestine, would be hearing from, well, I don't know, Palestinians? Nope. For decades, it was basically a gated community for Jewish voices on Israel and Palestine. From 1970 to 2020, less than 2% of opinion pieces in the New York Times were by Palestinians. The Washington Post, even worse, only 1%. But now we're seeing Palestinian activists breaking through this media blockade, like Noura Ariqat, Yusuf Munayyer, and Mohammed al-Kurd, presenting the Palestinian perspective to Western audience. But of course, covering events on the ground is still dangerous. Journalists are targeted and killed.
لا نستطيع أن نحتمل، لقد أنهكنا. إننا هنا ضحايا شهداء مع فرق التوقيت فقط. نحن نمضي واحدا تلو الآخر، ولا أحد ينظر إلينا ولا إلى حجم الكارثة والجريمة التي نعيشها في غزة. لا حماية، لا حماية دولية، لا حماية دولية على الإطلاق، ولا حصانة لأي شيء. لا تحمينا هذه الدروع ولا تحمينا هذه القبعات، إنها مجرد شعارات نرتديها فقط. هي لا تحمي أي صحفي على الإطلاق، على الإطلاق لا تحمينا هذه الدروع ولا هذه ما نرتديها فقط. هي شعارات فقط.
And footage is often suppressed under the guise of supporting terrorism. Yes, because nothing says hard-hitting journalism like, oops, this reality is too real. Better cut it out. And nothing says balanced reporting like ignoring half the story. And guess what? Israel's brutal treatment of Palestinians has made it super popular with groups who traditionally, how do I put it delicately, want to see the Jews swimming with the fishes. It's like a geopolitical version of Stockholm Syndrome. Now Israeli flags are popping up at far-right rallies. Richard Spencer, the alt-right guy, even calls himself a white Zionist.
I mean, you could say that I am a white Zionist. As an Israeli citizen, someone who understands your identity, who has a sense of nationhood and peoplehood and the history and of an experience of the Jewish people, you should respect someone like me.
It's like Dracula sending a thank you note to Van Helsing. Bizarre, right? Israel is showing us how to defend Western civilization. Because apparently Western civilization now means racial profiling and telling the UN to go fuck itself. Yeah. The pillars of democracy. Suppression and isolationism. It's like they are using 1984 novel as an instruction manual rather than a warning. For over 50 years, Israel has been promoting this extreme nationalist ideology and trying to create a market for it. But the more dangerous part is that it's not just selling an extreme ideology, but also the tools to implement it. Weapons. Hey, you, democratically elected leader, you want some weapons? Of course you do. And how about some spyware to go with that? It's like a happy meal, but for dictators. When Israeli arms companies go to Europe to showcase their latest weaponry, they market them as field-tested and proven effective. We tested them on Palestinians. Don't you see how we can control them? Human rights? So passé. No European country can sustain itself and maintain its power unless it does what we do.
למה יש ביקוש למוצרים ישראלים בעולם? יש המון מדינות שמייצרות...
נורא פשוט, משום מדובר כאן במדינה שהטכנולוגיה שלה היא בעצם בין הטובות בעולם. ולא רק זה, אלא אנשים אוהבים לקרוא משהו שכבר ניסו אותו. כשישראל מוכרת כלי נשק או מערכת, זה כלי נשק או מערכת שעברו ניסוי, עברו ניסיון. הוא יכול להגיד, אנחנו משתמשים בזה 10 שנים, 15 שנה, 5 שנים. לכן הביקוש הוא עצום.
והניסיון הזה מביא לשגשוג כלכלי? הוא מביא ממש רואים אותו
הניסיון הזה מכניס המון מיליארדי דולרים למדינת ישראל.
You see what's happening after Israel finished establishing the state, gaining control and subjugating Arab countries. The plan now is to turn the entire world into despotic states and eliminate democracy altogether. The spearhead for this plan is Netanyahu himself, who's trying to eliminate democracy within Israel itself. And he's not planning on stopping on Israel's borders. Netanyahu is the longest serving prime minister in Israel, serving more than 12 years before being ousted. only to return in 2021 through a coalition with the most extreme right-wing parties. He has been marketing his vision of ethno-nationalism like it's the new iPhone. And just like Apple, he's convinced everyone they need something they didn't even know they wanted. And you know it's bad when even the neoconservatives are getting a hard-on for it. This is Elliot Abrams, a man who never saw a war he didn't want to start or a human rights violation he couldn't justify. He is one of the key architects of the war on terror under Bush and Trump. Abrams spoke at a conservative conference in Israel in 2022, saying that Israel's role is to be a model for the US.
What is the role of Israel in that context inside the United States? It's not to intervene. It's not to try to pick winners. It is to be a model.
But here's where it gets really wild. Israel is not just selling an ideology. They have turned their occupation into a business model that would make Tony Stark jealous. Israeli arms manufacturers are out there selling a message that basically says, our equipment is great at suppressing people. Want to try it? And the best part? They are marketing their weapons as battle-tested on Palestinians. Like, don't worry, we've already used them to oppress an occupied population. They work great. Israel now has a top-level arms manufacturing sector because it has an advantage that no other arms manufacturer has. The others do not have the opportunity to test the new weapons before selling them. So their claims are just theoretical. But Israel has the Palestinians to test all its weapons on them without any global objection from the West or even the Arabs and Muslim neighbors who are actually protecting Israel's borders, as if they are auditioning for the role of the world's best neighbor. That's why Israel's arms dealers can confidently assure buyers that their products are field tested.
זה לא משהו שאני צריך להרוג אותו, בסוף גם צריך אולי להרוג אותו, או צריך לתפוס אותו, או צריך לעשות לו משהו. אבל בשבילי בראש ובראשונה זה אחר, זה דרך לפרש את עצמי מחדש. האחר בעצם הוא אתגר, הוא הזדמנות ללמוד, להבין אחרת את עצמי בקונסטלציה, בסיטואציה שבה אני נתון. מה זה מעבדה? זה הזדמנות ללמוד. מה זה ללמוד? זה לא לעשות טוב את מה שאני יודע, אלא לעשות טוב את מה שאני לא יודע. זה הסיפור. זה נשמע כמו אוקסימורון, אבל זה הסיפור.
Also, Israeli private security companies are among the most successful globally because they have real experience in suppressing people. Besides that, Israel sells spyware like Pegasus program developed by the NSO group, which Netanyahu is spreading worldwide by selling it to regimes around the world to gain these regimes' support. Is this something new or just a coincidence? No, it's a very old plan. Israel has been following this plan since the 1980s, when they invaded Lebanon and started marketing their weapons as field-tested since then, because they have tested them in Lebanon during the war. This attracted many regimes worldwide, as they saw Israeli weapons as the solution to their internal problems with the opposition. Apparently, Israel is so committed to being a light onto nations that they're literally selling the means to keep other nations in the dark.
Group B, Romania, Angola, Peru and the US, with this lovely officer over here. Group C, Canada, Germany, Cyprus, Turkey, Greece and Egypt, with this lovely officer over here. The Netherlands, Italy, Serbia, Switzerland, Brazil, Argentina,
קצינים, שוטרים וקבלני ביטחון פרטיים מכל העולם באים לישראל כדי לקנות נשק וללמוד שיטות.
During Obama's presidency, Netanyahu realized that democracy was bad for business. Obama frequently criticized Israeli policies, especially the ongoing building of settlements insisting that enough talks had been held without any action.
But the Palestinian people's right to self-determination, their right to justice, must also be recognized. And put yourself in their shoes. Look at the world through their eyes. It is not fair that a Palestinian child cannot grow up in a state of their own, living their entire lives with the presence of a foreign army that controls the movements, not just of those young people, but their parents, their grandparents, every single day. It's not just when settler violence against Palestinians goes unpunished. It's not right to prevent Palestinians from farming their lands or restricting a student's ability to move around the West Bank or displace Palestinian families from their homes. Neither occupation nor expulsion is the answer.
Once a conversation leaked where Obama were complaining to French President Sarkozy about Netanyahu. Sarkozy called him a liar, to which Obama responded that he had to deal with him even more.
An open mic during last week's G20 summit caught President Obama and French President Nicolas Sarkozy complaining about Israel's prime minister, according to a report by Reuters. "I cannot bear Netanyahu. He's a liar," said Sarkozy. Obama, according to a French interpreter who was translating his remarks, replied, "You're fed up with him, but I have to deal with him even more often than you." The president didn't exactly come to the defense of Netanyahu.
And of course, Netanyahu was not happy with this. So he set out to show the world that despotism is the way to go and to eliminate democracy and liberalism worldwide. Starting with the US, Netanyahu also has been caught once on a hot mic, casually speaking in a meeting with the Hungarian and Czech presidents, saying that Europeans are crazy. They are the only ones in the world who demand human rights conditions before dealing with us and buying our technology.
We have a peculiar situation that, I have to say this, Europe, the European Union is the only association of countries in the world that conditions the relations with Israel, that produces technology in every area, on political conditions. The only ones. We have a special relationship with China, and they don't care. They don't care about the political issues. Modi came to Israel now, spent a few days. He said, I have to take care of the interest of India. I need more water, clean water. Where will I get it? Ramallah. The only ones who are conditioning the association with Israel, the European, the EU Association Agreement. It's absolutely, may I say, I think it's crazy. I think it's actually crazy. It's against, I'm not talking about my interest, Israel's interest. I'm talking about Europe's interest. I think that if I can suggest that what comes out of this meeting is your ability perhaps to communicate to your colleagues in the other parts of Europe, help Europe twice. One, don't undermine the one European Western country that defends European values and European interests and prevents another mass migration to Europe. So stop attacking Israel, start supporting Israel. There is no logic here. Europe is undermining its security by undermining Israel. Europe is undermining its progress by undermining the connection with Israeli innovation because of a crazy attempt to create conditions.
And the EU learned the lesson and continued dealing with Israeli companies without imposing any conditions regarding the occupation or the violations against Palestinians. Israeli journalist Gideon Levy wrote about a meeting he attended, organized by Netanyahu, with the editorial board of the Israeli newspaper Haaretz. Netanyahu spoke for 4 hours, proudly showing them a world map with colored countries, saying that Israel, due to its leadership in arms manufacturing, technology, and surveillance, has won the support of most countries globally. He said, the whole world is practically in our hands. Only Western European countries are left, which aren't that important compared to the rest of the world. Netanyahu views Western Europe with disdain. He sees them as just backward people, obsessed with democracy and human rights, causing us nothing but headaches. But despite Israel's human rights abuses, Europe remains Israel's biggest trading partner because, let's face it, money talks louder than morals. European governments are only concerned with their interests, not human rights or democracy. but they must feed their people the rhetoric about democracy and human rights, because their people will not remain silent otherwise. Here, the role of Zionist media comes into play, spreading extremism and racism among European population, scaring them about their security. And they start parroting the narrative about Israel is protecting Europe from the savage, barbaric Muslims who want to destroy it. And who will deliver this message? Naftali Bennett himself, who was the economy minister, leader of the right-wing Jewish Home Party, and later became prime minister after Netanyahu. He filmed the video in 2015 from the West Bank, an occupied territory, talking about freedom and warning Europeans.
I'm standing on the hills of Judea and Samaria, what many call the West Bank. Tel Aviv is just 9 miles in back of me. To the north, we have Hezbollah. To the east, we have ISIS. To the south, we have Hamas. Israel is in the forefront of the global war on terror. This is the front line between the free and civilized world and radical Islam. We're stopping the wave of radical Islam from flowing from Iran and Iraq all the way to Europe. When we fight terror here, we're protecting London, Paris, and Madrid. Your war for democracy starts here. Your war for freedom of speech starts right here. The war for dignity and freedom starts right here.
I'm sorry, what? You're starting a war for democracy in an occupied territory. It's like Darth Vader claiming that Death Star is a beacon of galactic peace. And apparently Israel is so out of bound in the arms dealing world that they make other weapon manufacturers look like they're selling water pistols at a church fundraiser. Israeli armed companies showcase real videos of killing Palestinians with their weapons in international exhibitions to prove their effectiveness. Real footage of airstrikes killing Palestinian children. They shamelessly present forensic evidence of war crimes because no one will hold them accountable. It's like if McDonald's advertised by showing you footage of cows being slaughtered, except in this case, the cows are people, and the slaughterhouse is an occupied territory.
Using an advanced observation platform, which you can all see here, the target is positively identified. The target coordinates are then transferred to the allocation system that immediately assigns a jumper missile to be fired by the virtual trigger in the operator's hand. The munition is then guided precisely to the target's coordinates. Thanks for your time and attention. Our IAI representatives await your every question and request.
I'm sorry, but since when did war crimes become a selling point? No other arms manufacturer would dare to show actual footage of bombing civilians. Not even the largest arms manufacturers who participated in World War I and II. None of them would dare to show actual footage of killing civilians in Yemen, for example, to market their weapons. Israel, however, is unapologetic and ignores the concept of international law altogether. And no one calls them a rogue state. On the contrary, Western countries now wish they could be as brazen as Israel, but their people are still holding them back. Congratulations, Israel! You've won the most shameless arms dealer award. Your prize? The moral high ground. Wait, no, I'm sorry. Looks like you bombed that too. Israel has built its entire economy around this. It's like they have taken the phrase war economy and thought, you know what? Let's just cut out the middleman and go straight to war is the economy.
כולם אוהבים לדבר על הנס הכלכלי הישראלי, שגשוג וצמיחה, למרות עימות צבאי. אבל אולי לא למרות העימות, אלא בגללו. מאות אלפי ישראלים מתפרנסים מתעשיית הנשק, ורבים נוספים נהנים מרווחה, במדינה שהפכה ליצואנית הנשק הרביעית בגודלה בעולם. ויש ישראלים שנהנים במיוחד מתעשייה זו. לאו גלסר, בעל חברה ותיקה לייעוץ ביטחוני ומכירת נשק, נהנה בשנים האחרונות מההצלחה הגדולה בחייו.
יופי, טוב מאוד, טוב מאוד. כן.
בצהרי יום שבת נפגשים על הדשא בחצר ביתו קציני צבא, פוליטיקאים ואורחים זרים. רבים מהם יהפכו את סוף המסיבה ללקוחות של תעשיית הנשק הישראלית.
שגרירת ברזיל, שגריר ארגנטינה, נספח צבאי, גנרל de ejército. General Subal, he was the director of SIBAT, the Minister of Defense, for all the relations. They are from Pemex, and they have done now a fantastic operation. הוא אפרים יארי, הוא הממציא של כל הנשק הזה. אז הוא אגדה, הוא לא אוהב את זה, הוא בן אדם מאוד מאוד צנוע, לא כמוני, לא כמו אבא שלך ואני ארגנטינאים. איזה יופי.
אבל העובדה שיש לך היום עסק משגשג, חיים די נוחים, רווחה כלכלית, והכל מבוסס על העבר הזה, זה מטריד אותך?
לא, למה שתטריד אותי? אני ממש לא מצליח, ממש אין לי בעיה.
אתה פיקדת על יחידה שטוענים שחיסלה, שחטפה, ועכשיו אתה עושה מזה כסף.
למה אתה מבטא את הדברים השליליים? אולי תגיד, הצלתם? אולי תגיד, פעלתם בשביל לעזור למדינת ישראל? אולי תגיד את הדברים בצורה חיובית?
אם לא היה עם פלסטיני בעולם, מה היית עושה כלכלית?
הייתי בקאמרי, הייתי כותב ספרים, הייתי עוסק במכון בלט, מודרני, מרתה גרם, חביבה עליי, כיוון שלא הייתי מתפתח בכיוון הזה. אבל כיוון שאני התפתחתי בכיוון הזה, וצברתי ידע וניסיון והבנה, הגעתי לעסוק בדבר הזה.
ההייטק הישראלי במידה לא מבוטלת צמח בתוך החממות של משרד הביטחון. ההשקעות האלה הביאו את ישראל למצב שהיא מעצמה של ייצוא ביטחוני, כמעט 7 מיליארד דולר בשנה, תלויים ישיר ועקיף על התעשיות הביטחוניות, כ-150,000 בתי אב. רכש הגומלין, עשתה פעולה גדולה להגדיל את רכש הגומלין, גם זה, גם מטבע זר וגם מקומות עבודה, ואני חושב שזה מכשיר מרכזי בעיצוב המשק.
And the craziest part, the world is buying it. Not just the guns and the tanks, but the whole package. It's as if the global community looked at democracy and said, you know what, this is too much work. Let's try that thing where we don't have to listen to poor people anymore. What? Geneva Convention? Nah, that's more of a Geneva suggestion, I guess. Israel thrives on global conflict. It doesn't seem to care who it sells arms to. As long as you're not North Korea, Iran, or Syria, you're good to go. For 50 years, Israel has been practicing what's called espionage diplomacy, selling surveillance systems to regimes so that they can spy on and suppress the opposition and gain total control over their population. And they attract and embrace anyone who would help in this plan, from arm dealers to developers of surveillance systems, turning them into national heroes in Israel. Israeli arms sales in 2021 doubled from the previous year, increasing by 55%, reaching over $11 billion. That's not a number. That's a war crime with a dollar sign in front of it. And guess who's buying? Europe. That's right. The continent that spent the last 70 years saying never again is now saying never again unless it's a really good deal on missiles. Europe was the largest buyer of Israeli arms even before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It's like watching your grandmother develop a meth habit. And the result is that Israel is now one of the world's top 10 arms dealers. Moreover, Israel's influence extends into global conflicts too, from the Balkans to Rwanda. It's not about stopping wars. It's about thriving in chaos. This is the ultimate business strategy for an apocalypse. Israel is almost the only country that claims being a democracy that has never called out or sanctioned any atrocities worldwide. Of course, because they need to sell arms. Duh. That's why they refused to condemn Serbian crimes during the crisis in the Balkans in the 1990s, even when the Serbs bombed markets in Sarajevo in 1994, killing over 100 civilians. And in the same year, while 800,000 Tutsis were being slaughtered in Rwanda, Israel was busy shipping weapons to the brutal Hutu regime. And when questioned about it, they said, we have no control over where our weapons go, which is about as reassuring as a surgeon saying, we have no control over where the scalpel goes right before your operation. Israel had the choice at the very least to try to contain the massacres by using its vast surveillance powers to inform the Tutsis. But instead, they chose to throw a massive amount of fuel on the fire and became directly implicated in the slaughter. When Russia invaded Ukraine, you would expect Israel, claiming to be European, to rush to support Ukraine and condemn the Russian invasion, right? Nope. This time, Israel decided to play Switzerland, and not the cool Switzerland with chocolate and cuckoo clocks, but the morally bankrupt Switzerland that's fine with storing Nazi gold. And things got really awkward when Ukrainian President Zelensky asked Israel for help.
And I'm sure there are those in Russia who are well familiar with this. We would like to live, but our neighbors want to see us dead. It doesn't give us much room for compromise. I don't need to convince you that indeed the history of our nations is intertwined. Jews and Ukrainians in the past and even during those terrible times. We are in different countries, in different conditions, completely, but the threat we are facing is one. For you and for us.
Zelensky here is practically begging for help and invoking the Holocaust. And Israel's response? They told him to take a hike.
I think that if Zelensky's speech was in the Knesset, I probably should have stepped out during his speech. The fact that he, I think that it was the borderline Holocaust denial, the reference he gave to the Holocaust, and history denial, telling us that the Ukrainian people helped the Jews during World War II, during the Holocaust. It's I have to say it's a mockery. That's of course not the history. That's of course not true. And I think that Ukraine and Zelensky himself had more appreciation and sympathy before the speech than after the speech. I think that Israel at large is Israel's interference in this conflict between Russia and Ukraine is not the smartest thing, but it can be tolerated if it would be accepted in a good faith. But apparently it's not.
How dare you compare your situation to the Holocaust? We are a moral nation. Now, excuse me, I have to go sell some more weapons to dictators. And after all the pathetic ass-kissing Zelensky has been doing, after all his statements about how Israel was the ideal model for his country, and that he wants Ukraine to become a big Israel, and that Ukraine will definitely not be a liberal European country, and he already had a roadmap for that. After all this, they ignored him, but he still kept ass-kissing.
My recommendation to the leaders to go to Israel, and I think to support people. Just people. I'm not speaking about any institutions. Just to support people who've been under terroristic attacks, people who are dying now. It's very important. Unity is more important than...
And here's the truly insane part. Israel was selling phone hacking tech to Putin. That's like selling flamethrowers to a pyromaniac. And Israel didn't sell this technology to Ukraine, despite they have been asking for it since the 2019. They didn't want to anger Moscow. That's how Israel was complicit in Russia's descent into autocracy, because they're selling weapons to everyone with a credit card and a grudge. They're playing both sides in global conflicts, like a geopolitical version of The Bachelor, and they are making bank of human suffering, like they are running a lemonade stand in hell. And the craziest part, they are doing all this while claiming to be a light on two nations. Well, if by light they mean the flash of an explosion, and by nations they mean anyone willing to pay, then sure, they are a lighthouse.
חוזר לכאן והורג אנשים רבים. איך אתה מרגיש?
תקשיב לי, אם הוא הורג את כולם מהרעים, לחיים. זה כבר קרה לי, לחיים, אוקיי? אם יורג חף מפשע כאן, יכאב לי מאוד. לא קרה לי.
כאן, לראות על אנשים שבורחים, סביר?
שבורחים? מי ברח?
ככה טוענים.
מי ברח?
הנרקוטראפיק.
פה, נרקוטראפיק, אתה תירה בו ברגל, תירה בראש, תירה בעורף, תירה בגב, תירה מקדימה ומאחורה. הנזק שהוא גורם לכל החברה הוא הרבה יותר גדול. איך הוא הורגים אותו? אם תהרוג אותו עם מקל או תהרוג אותו עם כדור בראש, מה ההבדל? הוא מת.
תגיד לך מה אני חושב?
לא, מה זה?
לא, אני אגיד.
תגיד.
איזה יופי. אני אגיד, כי באמת, עשית עליי רושם שזה אדם
נחמד.
סופר נדיב.
אני נדיב.
סופר נחמד.
אני נחמד.
כמעט כמו אבא.
אני אבא ואני סבא.
ואני שואל את עצמי, למה הוא מכניס את עצמו למקום המקורבן?
למקום הזה מקורבן?
השוטרים שהורגים במאות, ולמה בכלל להיכנס?
לא, לך אין את המת.
שהורגים את השוטרים.
קודם כל...
מה שלא תעשה תסתבך. אני אומר כאילו למה הוא מסבך את עצמו?
תגיד לי, אתה חושב שכל זה בומבוניירה? החיים הם יפים? כשהיית תינוק, לא ניקו לך את התחת? האמא לא לקחה חלק של החרא שלך, שם אותו בפריג'ידר, ולמחרת רצה לרופא להראות את הקקה של הילד, שתראה מה שהוא מחרבן? למה להתעסק בחרא? לא, כי היא צריכה להראות לרופא את החרא, את הדברים. אז המקצוע שלי זה נקרא ביטחון. מודיעין זה מקצוע מלוכלך. לוחמה בטרור זה אכזרי. הבטחה קשה מאוד. אני בנוי לזה. בגלל זה אני בזה. אבל אני לא עושה חרא. אני מנסה לעשות מהחרא חבילה כמה שיותר קטנה וכמה שפחות מסריקה. זה הכל.
Apparently, Israel's version of self-defense includes arming half the world's conflicts and then washing their hands of the consequences faster than Lady Macbeth on speed. And Israel is not just exporting its occupation expertise. Now, you know how some people go on vacation to learn about culture? Well, US cops have been going to Israel to learn about occupation before taking it back to their home country. Yeah, you heard that right. This is the Anti-Defamation League, a US-based pro-Israel organization that apparently thought, you know what would make American cops better at their jobs? A field trip to occupation land. That's right. Since 2004, they have been sending US police to Israel to learn, well, God knows what, how to turn a peaceful neighborhood into a war zone in 5 easy steps.
To get the opportunity to come to Israel is truly incredible for all of us. We've had the opportunity to meet a number of outstanding people from the IDF as well as the Israeli National Police.
By being able to come over here and share our experiences and see what's happening, tactics, intelligence, and all the things that are occurring over here makes us a better organization and makes us stronger in the United States.
The experience has been amazing. I really didn't know what to expect, and I really didn't know the Anti-Defamation League does this for law enforcement, and I've just been blown away by the places we have been and the speakers that have come to talk to us.
You have people who really have the background, really have the knowledge. They're living this. They're doing with it every day, as opposed to some academic from a textbook. Not that that's bad, but people who really live the experience can tell the experience.
I've participated in a number of training environments over my 31-year career. I've never had the opportunity to leave the country and actually come to a place that has been dealing with terrorist-related activity for years. Because in our world, we consider the Israeli National Police definitely the experts in this field.
I mean, come on. That's like sending a bull to anger management classes taught by a matador. And on your left, you'll see our latest in-crowd control technology. It's like pepper spray, but with a hint of ethnic superiority. Over 1,000 American cops have gone in these little excursions. 1,000. That's not a training program. That's a occupation exchange program. It's like sending your local neighborhood watch to train with Darth Vader. But wait, it gets better. The ADL claims this is all about counter-terrorism because apparently the best way to fight terrorism is to terrorize your own citizens. Congratulations, officer. You've won an all-expenses-paid trip to occupation land. Your prize? A shiny new perspective on how to view your community as the enemy. And US citizens started seeing the results of this training program in how militarized American police have become. It's like turning your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man into the Punisher. Remember George Floyd? See any similarities? Now you might think that after the Black Lives Matter movement pointed out that maybe, just maybe, learning from an occupying force isn't the best idea for community policing, the ADL would reconsider. And they did for about 5 minutes. Then they were like, nah, let's keep teaching cops to treat civilians like enemy combatants. What could possibly go wrong? This is why the Black Lives Matter movement explicitly connected the Zionist occupation of Palestine with the treatment of minorities by American police. In 2021, US Congresswoman Cori Bush tweeted, "The struggles for Black and Palestinian liberation are interconnected, and we will not back down until we are all free." And the strongest campaign against training American police in Israel was led by a group of American Jewish activists called Jewish Voice for Peace. Oh, and let's not forget the cherry on top of this shit sundae. Israeli companies are selling phone hacking tools to US police departments because apparently the Fourth Amendment is more of a suggestion than a law. In 2020, Pew Research Center has done a survey across 34 countries about people's satisfaction with democracy. And the result? Israel's mission to eradicate democracy isn't limited to America. It's a global campaign. Only 44% of people are happy with democracy. That's less than half. Democracy is literally losing a popularity contest to systems that don't even let you vote. It seems like we've collectively decided that freedom is overrated, and what we really need is a boot stamping on a human face forever. But hey, at least it's an Israeli-made boot. Quality, craftsmanship. So here you have it. We've gone from David versus Goliath to, well, Goliath versus everyone. But this time, Goliath is selling tickets to the show and offering workshops in stone throwing techniques. So what can we do? Well, for starters, we can stop pretending that what's happening in Palestine doesn't affect us. We can demand accountability from our own governments when they cozy up to oppressive regimes. And maybe we can remember that treating all human beings with dignity and respect isn't just a nice idea. No, it's essential for our own collective survival. Freedom for all, or no freedom at all for anyone. Because the tools and techniques being developed to oppress Palestinians today could be used against any of us tomorrow. Actually, they are being used now when we might find ourselves in a world where the only choice we have is between oppression classic and diet oppression. And trust me, neither of those taste good, even if you add lime. It's like that old poem. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist, except now it's first they came for the Palestinians, and I did not speak out because I was too busy trying to figure out why my phone was acting weird. So next time you hear about Israel's security concerns or its role as a beacon of democracy in the Middle East, remember, the occupation isn't just happening in Palestine. It's being exported to a neighborhood near you. And unless we do something about it, we might all find ourselves living in a global occupation zone. But hey, at least we'll have really cool surveillance tech to keep us company in our dystopian future. Maybe we can use it to finally figure out why our Roomba keeps trying to escape.
This beat goes stupid. Stupid.
And on that cheerful note, remember, keep your friends close, your enemies closer, and your phones in a Faraday cage.